Hello, and welcome to Why Make, the podcast where we talk with artists about why they make, with me, your host, Eric Wolkin. To see images of the artwork in this episode and all of our episodes, go to why-make.com. Today we talk with artist, woodworker, educator, humorist, and seeker of joy, Annie Evelyn. Annie's the head of the wood area in the Craft and Material Studies Department at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, and she's been a part of many exhibitions, including 2 groundbreaking ones specifically for women craft artists. I found a great essay from Annie called Why Joy on her website, and here's a quote that feels like the perfect way to kick off this episode. It is our shared humanity that allows us to connect through the absurdities of life. One of those absurdities is that I am a conceptual, functional furniture maker. I love the line in your bio where you says, one of those absurdities is that I'm a conceptual, functional furniture maker. Pick it apart and really explain what that means.
My grandparents owned a furniture company. The furniture in our house was the most valuable thing in our house. And then later, when I went to art school and I was like, what am I going to do? Furniture just seemed like something I had a connection to and something I could express myself with, because in my family, it was the fine art. It was the thing that everybody cared about. And so that made sense to me. But I am not a designer or even a craftsperson before I am a conceptual artist. I still call myself a furniture maker because that's what I do. And it's also important to me. I make very accessible work, and that is extremely important to me. I don't want to just have conversations with artists or intellectuals. I want a conversation with everybody. That's the type of person I am. And furniture and chairs especially draw people in. So everybody knows what to do with a chair. It's a hello, how are you? Come talk to me, to a stranger. And what I mean by conceptual, and when I say I'm a conceptual artist, I start off with an idea. I almost always start off with an idea. Then after I have the idea that I want to express, then I design an object to express that idea. And so that's why I can call myself a conceptual furniture maker. So not every piece starts that way, but most of my pieces start that way.
And one of the things that sets Annie apart is that her ideas are often humorous and absurd. Like in graduate school, she made a series of coin-operated magic tables, much like the magic fingers on beds in cheap motels of the 60s and 70s. The goal in this case was to create mayhem by vibrating anything that was on top of the table off and send it crashing to the floor. She has also been known to make chairs that make farting sounds and do other unexpectedly absurd things when you sit in them as well. So where do those kinds of pieces live in this world, especially for a maker with a restless mind and a wicked sense of humor? You've tried to stop being absurd?
I tried. It didn't work. I know. It was foolish. Well, I'll tell you the first thing that I did after I tried not to be absurd was this event called Table Fights. Table Fights is fully automated, remote-controlled fighting tables that compete for ultimate supremacy. Wait, I gotta try it again. Hold on. Give me one more try.
You gotta get the voice right. Nail the voice.
Fully automated, remote-controlled fighting tables that compete for ultimate supremacy in a splinter-thirsty showdown of furniture mayhem.
This sounds very gender-specific. These are male fighting tables.
Well, I don't know. I made a pretty girly table that first year. It was pink, and it was called the Golden Slapper, and it just stood there, and it had this hand, this fake nail hand on it. So this thing just stood there and slapped and then peed itself every once in a while.
So that's a little introduction to the mind and genius of Annie Evelyn. We should also note that she completed both her undergraduate degree and a Master's of Fine Arts at the Rhode Island School of Design, also known as RISD, as well as a certificate in collegiate teaching at Brown University. And now let's move on to the question that starts most Why Make interviews. Annie Evelyn, what is your first memory of making something?
Yeah, really been dreading this because then I have to tell everyone that I am one of those people that has basically no childhood memories. The best I have is a flash image of holding a Barbie with like shorn hair, because that was the first thing I did to every Barbie, was cut their hair down to a cropped buzz cut, with wearing a navy blue dress that I had made from cutting 3 holes in a sock. So that is my like earliest kind of flash memory.
Give us the short story of how woodworking became your passion and your first inkling that it was going to become a career.
So I knew I was going to be a fashion designer, and I knew that from the time I was a small child. I was going to make high couture living on the end of a dirt road in the country. And I went to RISD for that, applied with a fashion portfolio. I declared fashion as my major. I went to the first meeting, and the woman said, "At RISD, we don't call it fashion, we call it apparel." And I was like a young, dumb idiot from Brunswick, St. Simons, Georgia, didn't have that much exposure. And I didn't understand what she was actually saying was, we are going to make real clothes, not just like trending fashion. But I just thought it sounded pretentious and not like me. And I had also finally come to the realization that you couldn't really be part of the fashion world without being part of like the fashion industry, being city and all this stuff. And my dream that I had of, just making this high fashion like outside of that was like not realistic. So I just put, I'm going to switch to furniture. And they didn't have furniture department undergrad at RISD yet. So I had to choose between sculpture and industrial design. And I looked at what people were making in both of those things, and neither of them were really a great fit, but totally turned off by the craftsmanship in sculpture. And I wanted to really be able to learn how to make the ideas in my head. So I thought I could do that better with industrial design and then, just not make products. It turned out to be harder than I thought. In fact, I like cried every day in industrial design and made like cardboard boxes that held my emotions because I was like rejecting the ergonomics and like making design decisions based outside of self. But luckily for me, they started the furniture undergraduate program the next year, and I took a semester off and then joined that. So I was only in the horror ID for a little over half a year.
As you moved from crying into your box of tears into the actual furniture design program, what were your thoughts on furniture as you began? Where did you think this was leading?
I think that question implies that I knew and thought about life more than I actually did at that age. I was doing one day at a time, maybe still am, but I think I knew I could do furniture instead of fashion because it was still designing for the body. And all my work is very connected to the human body. I knew if the human aspect was still there, then that would work. A lot of my work was at that point until I got to my senior like thesis work or degree project, they call it there, was very like if they made an assignment that was like put a drawer in it or whatever, then I would like do everything I could to like turn that around and like not do what I was told. And I think that was like a rejection of the industrial design in me, that I was just like, I will not do what you tell me to do.
New York City was then the logical landing place for someone who is in her heart a conceptual artist. But sometimes the search does not end exactly where you think it will, and Annie eventually ended up getting the very prestigious 3-year artist in residency at the Penland School of Craft in rural North Carolina.
When I applied to the residency, I was living in New York, and I was kind of like in between the like fine art world and the design world. And I had never really been a part of the craft world. My friend, Tom Shield, who had been doing the residency, kept saying to me, like, you have to apply for this residency. And I was like, I can't go to this like rural weird place and like live for 3 years. Like, that's crazy. And then I went there to teach a class. And on the second day, I was like, I can come back here. I can come back here. I want to be here. And I got back to New York and was teaching adjunct at RISD, adjunct at Parsons, doing freelance upholstery and making furniture. And it was just like, my life was so hectic to just survive. And I was like, when am I ever going to think of new work? When will the new work ever come if I never have any brain space to get beyond that? And so I started fantasizing about going to Penland and having all the space and time to make new work and, have an artist community outside of the city, which I didn't even know you could have an artist community outside of the city until I saw Penland. And I love community and I wanted that very much. And I got there and then I was idealized failing. I was like, I just want to have time to fail and try new ideas. But that, as it turns out, was not what I wanted, because that is what happened. And then I hated that. I couldn't come up with any new ideas. I was just like, what am I doing? I have all this time. I'd never had all this time, and now I had all this time. And that actually brought on a lot of depression. So I was struggling with what to make. And as a Penland resident, you get a free class every year, one free golden ticket. And I took a jewelry class with Simon Cottrell, and my mind was blown. And I just got so obsessed with adornment and jewelry, and that ended up having this big impact. And I will say that now, for the rest of my life, I know it's like an ace in my back of my pocket. If I ever get to that state again where I'm I don't know what to do, I don't know who I am, what I need to make, then I'm going to go take a class in something I'm not supposed to be good at already. Taking that class in jewelry where nobody expected anything out of me because I, wasn't already an established maker was so freeing. And it just opened me up and got me excited again. Your ego gets in your way and you're like, but I have to make something good, and especially when you're at the Penland residency and everybody's looking at you and coming into your studio, what are you working on? What are you making? You're like, this better be good.
So where did this aha moment lead to? Well, the short answer is to a series of squishy chairs, which are chairs you sink into when you sit down, and they are made with the help of a tool commonly known in jewelry as a squisher, or for the more sophisticated of you, a hydraulic press.
So I think my number one thing is that my squishy work that I was making before that has this it looks like a hard surface, and then you sit on it and you're like, oh my God, I just sank, and I made one of those using the tool that they call the hydraulic press. I call the squisher. And I made this aluminum chair that was covered in that. I was really happy with those pieces, and it was really exciting to finally make a shift that I was excited about. Then I realized when people sat in them that there was something missing. You sat in them and you just sat in them, and that was it. It was a pretty chair. The beanbag shapes, you kind of expect them to give, so there's no surprise or anything. What ended up, I realized, missing from those pieces is the importance of the human interaction. It was just those chairs don't care whether you sit on them or not. The next piece I made was the Oshibana chair, which is all handmade paper flowers in that same form. And when you sit on them, the paper flowers crush and leave an impression of where your body was. And that was my aha, I gotta get the importance of the human body. I can't accidentally lose that in the designs. It was also kind of the first piece that I made that was more feminine, I guess, and flowery and girlish. And then when I tried that on for size, I was kind of oh yeah, let my hair grow out a little bit and be more comfortable with flowery side of myself. Penland opened up the whole craft world to me, and I finally found my people. And I was like, oh my God, this is what has been hiding in plain sight from the fulfillment that I needed in my career for my whole life.
I hope you had a chance to hear Y-Make's recent episode about two groundbreaking exhibitions that featured women furniture makers, making a seat at the table and seating assignment. Annie, not surprisingly, was involved in both, and we talked with her about her piece for seating assignment, which was called the Red Diamonds Chair.
It is a red silk upholstered, diamond tufted chair that has a big train coming out from behind it, like a bridal train. It's constructed with a plywood bent lamination. The train is constructed with a plywood bent lamination, and the frame itself is walnut. I very interested in events and parties and costumes and wigs. And I mean, even like at Thanksgiving that I hosted at Penland once, I made everybody there put on a wig. And when everybody puts on a wig, you are empowered and you feel different. And I wanted to make a piece that captured that, a chair that would give you that, like, I have on a beautiful gown and I am powerful right now. So that was my hope with that piece. This piece was a remake of Cathedral Train chair. And I made Cathedral Train chair when I was doing a Wingate residency at UW-Madison, which I will just have to say was one of the most amazing experiences that I've had in my life.
Second-guessing ourselves is the natural state for most artists. We're always making choices, concept versus craftsmanship, detail over money and time. Would others criticize those choices? Annie was self-conscious about that, and it nagged at her.
So, I was very excited about that piece. And then it turned out that everybody else was really excited about that piece too. And that was great, except I just kept getting requests to have it in shows, and which you would think would be great. But I was like, I started worrying, oh my God, other furniture makers are going to think that that's how I make furniture and that I'm not a real furniture maker and that I'm just some hack, and like, I kind of like, I don't know, maybe like the third or fourth time I did it, I just like inside was like, I can't show this work again. Like, I'm just like, my worry about what other people thought of me just became so overwhelming that I no longer wanted to show the piece, but I still wanted to show the piece. So I was like, I am going to remake this piece in like a fine furniture way. And so I made Red Diamonds. And then after I made it, I was like, oh, I just remade the same piece and I have none of the like happy feelings about it that I normally do when I make a piece, because if a piece is a conversation with yourself, I was repeating myself. And it was just like, it then became a piece about my own inability to disregard public opinion and like not, and my like inability to have a strong enough sense of self to not worry about, what other people thought of me. And I kind of describe it as like, I'm a furniture maker and an artist, and they're not always harmonious bedfellows. And this piece kind of helped me realize that. And then, that was an issue for me. So then I made the What is Real piece, which is making fun of myself for not, for giving a fuck about what people thought.
And what is real piece?
The What is Real piece it's like a head hole piece, like when you go to the beach and put your head in and there's like a bikini body underneath you or something, or a mermaid. They don't have a great name for them. It's like head hole or, something like that. So I made a chaise lounge that is completely all flat on a board with walnut, and I diamond tufted it and put a little hole in it, and then you can stick your head in it. And it's just making fun of myself for worrying about what other people think. And like, I get to decide the kind of furniture I make, and I shouldn't listen to weird voices in my head that say my furniture isn't valid or what I'm making is not real.
Teaching has also been a large part of Annie's practice. She has taught both workshops and at some of the most prestigious schools, including Penland and Haystack Mountain School, and adjunct gigs at the Rhode Island School of Design and the Parsons School of Design. She is now head of the wood area and the Craft and Materials Studies program at Virginia Commonwealth University.
Like, one of the most simple things that I do with my beginning students, and it's one of my favorite assignments, is that I have this drawing assignment I do, and I cut out clip art, like a little flower or a picture of a turtle, the line art, and everybody, it's in like a little bowl, and everybody picks one. And I have them draw for 2 minutes. I'd have them draw a table that draws exclusively visually from the image. So if they had a turtle, they wouldn't necessarily have to have a table that looked like a turtle. They could use the curve of the shell, or the pattern, or like whatever. That could just be like one, they could look at one small portion of it and make that into a thing. And then, so that's just like, okay, you're using visual imagery as a inspiration for your piece, right? Then the second thing I have them do is now think about the turtle and like free associate for a minute. And like, what do you think about when turtles? Okay, I think about, I'll just go through me. I had a roommate who had a turtle and then kind of stopped taking care of it. And then I became a turtle parent. And then I, ended up feeling bad because these turtles live forever and they're like trapped in a thing. And, I'm just going to think of everything I think about turtles, and then I'm going to think about, I'll free associate, and I'll keep doing that until my brain latches on to something that could be a table. So, and that could be a feeling, like maybe like I felt bad about imprisoning these, animals for the rest of their life. And then maybe I make a table that is inspired about, imprisonment, and like maybe it's got bars. And that's like, just like the simplest way that I can explain, like that is how you draw. That is
In
how
wrapping
you
up,
design something from
I
an
know
idea.
you're an incredibly busy person, and there's probably a lot of work-life balance going on. I know you're building a studio, but what is in your sketchbook right now? What ideas are mulling around in your sketchbook?
I want to work on these, and I think they'll be vessels, but I want to work in an additive sculptural kind of way. I'm feeling the need to just kind of do some like visceral expression or something. There's been so much change and turmoil in my life that I want to try to actually just not think and plan something first. I have all these vintage jewelry finding parts and wood, and I want to just kind of work intuitively and put these two things together and see what happens. And it will probably end in a junk pile, but I think that I need to do that. I will also say that after my first year of full-time teaching, the first thing I did for my first week of summer break was write a treatment for a rom-com.
Which Why Make will produce. We will do it as a piece of radio theater.
Thank you. Great. Okay.
With a final thought from my absurdist guest that she's writing a rom-com in her spare time, I had to ask if all the characters in this novel would be animated chairs, and disappointingly found out no. The characters were flesh and blood and not wooden at all, but the protagonist would be a furniture maker. There's so much in this story about Annie Evelyn that we did not get a chance to cover. For example, she helped found Crafting the Future in 2019 with a dedicated group of artists from Penland to address the glaring lack of racial and ethnic diversity in the fields of art, craft, and design. If you'd like to know more about Crafting the Future, go to craftingthefuture.org. If that was not enough, she was also one of the co-founders of Treat Studios in downtown Spruce Pine, North Carolina, whose mission is to provide affordable studio space and a diverse and inclusive community for 18 artists to make. More info at treatstudio.org. And finally, you can see Annie's work by going to annieevelyn.com. That's ANNIEEVELYN.com. And again, thanks for listening, and why make? Why Make is a production of Eric Wolken. This episode was edited with help from Johanna Zorn. You can help support the Why Make podcast by going to why-make.com and clicking on the donate button. All donations are tax deductible through our fiscal sponsor, Fractured Atlas.